surely this is a vain spoiler campaign that certainly your brothers and sisters think will let Trump in. His line was that his private polling shows that if he pulls out, Trump does better.
David, welcome. Do tell us about Robert F. Kennedy. Is he the black sheep of the dynasty?
Well, you could say that because he's started to get some traction in this race that a majority of Americans say they don't want, the rematch between Biden and Trump. So there's definitely a gap in the market. But Joe Biden had an event in Philadelphia, the head of the Pennsylvania primary, a couple of weeks ago, and no fewer than eight of Bobby. He's known as Bobby in the family, of course. No fewer than eight of Bobby Kennedy's brothers and sisters joined Biden for that event. That's eight of his surviving 10 siblings to say that they were supporting Biden. And some of them are very angrily outspoken against him, saying that he may have our famous father's name. His father, of course, was assassinated in 1968 as he was winning the California primary. And looking like he might become the Democratic candidate back then. But they say he might have our famous father's name, but he has none of the temperament or the qualities that would make him a presidential candidate. So they really are quite strongly against him. I should say, he does have one or two Kennedys in his corner. Obviously, a couple of his own children and their partners, and another cousin who I think was the fifth child of JFK's sister, Eunice. I mean, it's an enormous family. So it's quite a hard family tree to follow. But he has one or two Kennedys in his own corner. And it's a rather extraordinary emergence to run for president, because he was seen at a very, very young age as a natural standard bearer, if you like, for the next generation of Kennedys. But that was before his life fell apart after his father's death, and he became, hopelessly addicted to drugs. He had a heroin overdose on a plane that lost him his job as a prosecutor in New York. But he reinvented himself and had a very successful career as an environmental lawyer, and this is why he became known in America. But then he took another I shouldn't say left, or he took another strange turn when he became obsessed with vaccinations after meeting a woman who convinced him that her child became autistic as a result of a childhood vaccination.
Yeah.
And he was named by a British internet monitoring group, actually, as one of the dozen individuals who was responsible for the 2/3 of all the misinformation about vaccines during the COVID pandemic. So a really checkered, to say the least,
Right.
backstory for RFK Jr.
So, David, what stood out for you from your interview?
Well, first of all, I had to ask him about his voice, because it sounds extremely croaky and painful. The sort of strangled way that he speaks but it's not due to a physical ailment or anything progressive. It's a neurological condition that came on in his 40s that causes his vocal cords to spasm involuntarily, and he can't do anything about it. But he actually says that far from being debilitating, he actually, as he gets going, his fluency increases, and really his problem is saying too much, because he said some more controversial things, likening the condition of Americans forced to take the COVID vaccine to Anne Frank, for example, which even his wife tweeted against and said that this I do not share these views with my husband. This is abhorrent. So it seems that wife number 3, who, by the way, is Cheryl Hines, an actress who is known from Curb Your Enthusiasm. She's sticking with him. She's campaigning with him, of course, but she didn't agree with him on that. I just think the other thing is that it's like meeting a movie star. He has adoring fans. He looks pretty amazing at the age of 70, really striking features, and that Kennedy look, of course. But he seems weighed down by all these troubles that he's got, that he's had. and this kind of paranoia really about the state of America, that a lot of its institutions, instead of helping Americans, are
Yes.
actually targeting Americans and making life worse. And in the case of his uncle, Kennedy, actually he blames the CIA for Kennedy's murder.
Right. Look, I mean, he's not going to be a very serious contender for president. I mean, clearly, who though is he going to hurt of the main two contenders?
Well, the thing is, he's on about 10% support nationally on average, and in some swing states, I've seen polling where he's on 15, 16%. And so the both campaigns, Biden and Trump, are really worried that he will take their potential voters, and that's something we talked about the most. Actually, was surely this is a vain spoiler campaign that certainly your brothers and sisters think will let Trump in. His line was that his private polling shows that if he pulls out, Trump does better. He told us that if he pulls out, Trump wins two more states. He wins Virginia and Maine. Um, and that his own polling says that Biden can't win in a straight race against Trump, and Biden can't win in a three-horse race with him against Trump. So that's why he's running. He thinks he will. He seems genuinely convinced, at least rhetorically, that he can pick up votes and come through and do what no third candidate has done in living memory, of course, which is to win the thing. In fact, no third candidate has won a state since 1968. So it's a big ask, and it's also a very expensive and difficult thing just to get on the ballot in every state. He's on the ballot, I think. He's got enough signatures in 10 of the 50 states at the moment, because you need to gather lots of signatures and satisfy the authorities that you've met all their criteria.
Okay, David, thank you. So interesting to hear from you on that interview with Robert F. Kennedy.